guys, welcome to the Elevated You podcast, and today we are here with Angela Proffitt, dear friend of mine, fellow dancing diva and fun shorty, which we have so much in common. We met each other at Podfest, and we had just like aligned. At her speech, I was like, this girl is my soul sister.
It's hilarious. We have so much, and the more we talk, and the more we talk, and the more we talk, I'm just like, oh my God, there's this. Oh my God, there's this. And you just find your people.
You find your, I swear, in like the gravitational pull of connecting energies. Yeah, we're gonna talk about all that.
Yeah.
But yeah. Angela, so tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. I went to school to be a psychologist, and I love people. And I worked in a mental hospital. I worked in a morgue. I've done some really off the wall things through my life, but you don't know they're off the wall until you start talking to people and they're like, wait, you've done what? Like, how did you even get there? Mm-hmm. And it's all about the people. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like relationships with people. And if you listen to your community and your audience and the people who want to love and support and build you up around you, and you just keep following those signs, that's where you can really end up being super happy. Mm-hmm. But I used everything I learned in psychology and accidentally started a wedding planning business. And my family had a venue for 35 years on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And so growing up around it, you just pick up things, but you don't realize that you're just naturally good at something. Mm-hmm. And so I still, worked in healthcare, worked in the hospital. I feel like I lived like a dual life for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Where I was in medical sales and infectious disease and a lot of therapy, but also recruitment and sales at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And then on the weekends, I was a wedding planner. And just through word, this was way before social media. So even through just word of mouth, people were like, I'm not getting married here, or I'm not Catholic. Oh, we were both raised Catholic,
Yeah,
too.
we were both raised Catholic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now we're spiritual. But, I mean, doing thousands of weddings, like, all over the world, mm-hmm. and you would never think that you're raised like one religion. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. And so when people ask me, like, what religion are you? I'm like, whatever my client is that weekend. But it's like we've done so many events. But the power of connection and the power of social media and the power of finding your people is that life truly is limitless. Mm-hmm. Whatever you want, you put up the vision board, and joining a group called EO, the Entrepreneur Organization, around 2012, I think, really helped clear up things for me, and nothing's wrong with me. I'm just an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And I'm not around the right people. Mm-hmm. And so the story does come back, you guys. I know I go off on a lot of tangents sometimes. Someone's like, are you doing the Tony Robbins looping technique? I'm like, I know that's a thing, but no, I'm not trying to strategically do that.
What's the looping thing?
Well, it's like where you start to tell a story, and a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And that's the framework of a story, a good story. And so if you start and then you switch up the middle and then the end, but you loop it all back together. And so it's called looping. So, it's like through the journey of entrepreneurship, things just happen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like when you know what you want and you're clear, then you can go faster. Mm. And it took me a long time to learn that I really need to think about, why am I doing all this? And no one ever asked me that. Like, what is this for? Like, yeah, we need money. Money's a tool. We all need it to live, but it doesn't make you happy.
Yeah. And
it doesn't motivate everyone. I'm not really motivated by money. I'm motivated by the people, mm-hmm. and helping people. Mm-hmm. But I also have to own a business. And that's the part where outsourcing and surrounding myself with people who are way better at those things so that I can free my time up and mm-hmm. spend time with people like you.
Yes, I love your outlook on it, because that is something, as I'm growing in my entrepreneurship and in my businesses, is that same thing. Like, what can I delegate? How can I grow this and do the things that I best serve in, and allow others to be serving in where they can best serve? And so I love that mindset. That's so good.
And you're supporting other people too.
Yeah.
Like 100%. When you give people an opportunity You know, we talk a lot about our moms.
Yeah.
And my mom, and she's coming around with her mindset, but she's like, you guys are just a little spoiled and you pay for convenience. And, you know, she's like, we grew up in her parents, my grandparents grew up in the Depression, and
Same
they
with
own
mine.
businesses, and, you know, they hoard everything and they just hold on to things. And, you know, the older I get, I'm like, it's not about the stuff. Like, it's about, like, the memories that you make. And so as we're cleaning out, like for garage sale stuff, you know, you're cleaning out and you're realizing, oh shit, everything has a memory tied to it. And it's like, you know, to you, it might just be stuff. You know, to me, I'm like, we just need to get rid of all this stuff. So I'm like, why don't we take photos or videos and, you know, put them in the cloud or do something with it to create like a memory book. You know, that's where I'm like all about creating content, creating memories. And it's like listening to our moms and learning more about, I don't know, the older I get, the more I learn, the more questions I ask. Like about my childhood and how things loop back to everything of like why I act the way I act today.
That's honestly, I've been having really good discussions with my mom lately about that very thing. Like we talk a lot about life, a lot about past experiences, like of generations that pass, because that generational pass down is real, and there's a lot more science that's starting to back up those kind of things and those traits and tendencies that we, both good and, you know, things that we're working on as well. So yeah, I really like that.
Have you done a lifeline?
No.
Okay, so I did a podcast on this. I'm on a podcast, so it's like, depending on how old you are, you can like take the year you were born and the year of where you are right now when you do this, or when you're listening or watching, and you draw a line, and then it's like every year has a vertical line, and you write the high and the low of every year.
Oh, I like that.
And you kind of have to do it with your parents or your family or people who knew you when you were younger, because I don't remember, you know, a lot of those things. So we did it with my family for Thanksgiving. And some of my family members, they're not entrepreneurs, and it's okay. Like, we're all different, and I'd love them, but we're just different. And we lead and live very, very drastically different lives.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I still love my family, but it's hard to have a conversation because they don't do or live or they can't really relate. 100%. And so you don't really have anything to talk about. But anyway, when you do a lifeline with your family, you all relate because you share the same family. And it was neat to like listen to my mom, but what I was looking for was a theme, because if you take the time to do this, you can find a common theme through whether it's a negative or a positive theme. And so one thing my mom kept saying was like, your dad was never there, your dad was never there, your dad was, well, my dad worked full time and my mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
So it's like, of course my dad was gone all the time because he was working, supporting a family. But then my brother's wife, who also had working parents, like her mom did not stay at home. She's like, well, our grandparents raised us, but that was the plan.
Yeah.
She's like, we all had master degrees, we're not in debt. Like that was the plan. And so to reframe it, instead of looking at it as, oh, he was never there, of, oh, he was taking care of the family, and it gave us an opportunity for me to be a stay-at-home mom and raise you all the way that we wanted you to be raised. And so, you don't think about those things. I'm like, wow, there was actually like a plan and a strategy to like raising these 3 kids. But then when you get out of that plan, you don't know how to react.
That's so true. I like the reframeworking part because like how often we can take multiple perspectives of something that happens, or if you even like, okay, example, South by Southwest is going on. It's busy in Austin right now. You know, I've heard multiple people have different opinions about it. I'm really excited about it. It's my first one. It is busy. And then I hear people, they're like, I can't, it's just too heavy of an energy. I just want to be out of the city. And so it's like really interesting to hear different perspectives. And I like to listen to all these different perspectives and take them in and be like, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
You know, I don't have to like believe this perspective, but what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this or this experience, this perspective? And so I really like that growth mindedness to the perspective.
You can always learn something.
You can always learn something.
And that's why I'm so, like, my whole brand is like, be present. And that comes, you know, again, from like pain from my father telling me, like, put your phone down at the dinner table and like bring your mind here, like you're here. You know, when you're going through something really hard and you have plans with a girlfriend, but you're not gonna not go because like you hadn't been out in forever, and you go and you want to listen and you want to engage, but your dog could be dying at home.
Yeah.
You know, like this is like a real story with me, you know, where it's like, should I have stayed home? Should I have just told the truth and said, I don't want to be having dinner right now? Like, my dog's dying. And it's like, the older I get, the more I'm like, you just need to be true to yourself.
Yes.
You know, and if your gut's telling you that if they're a true friend, they're not going to get mad. They're the ones that are like, well, let's just move the dinner to your place. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like when you start thinking about the people that you spend your time with, and it's like time is so precious and it's so valuable. And so that's why my whole thing of being present is whatever you put on your calendar, show up for what the calendar says and, you know, be there 100%.
I completely agree with that. That's so true. And like, and honor yourself too. Honor like where, like I have a tendency to take on too much.
We all do sometimes.
We all do sometimes.
But if you time block,
yes,
and you know your capacity, like if you look at your calendar and say, okay, like I know travel schedule, everything, because everything is very timed out.
Yeah.
But it's 80-20. Life happens. That's, even though you plan it out, it can't be that way 100% of the time. So that's where you give yourself grace.
100%. I love this. And it sounds like, you know, you've done a lot of self-work, which I love.
Yeah.
And I'd love to share you have a health journey you've accomplished.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear about that journey and
Yeah.
the transformation you went through.
Yeah. So it all started, are you
Dun,
ready?
dun.
With a treadmill desk.
I love that.
And it is like, I mean, it's just funny. Like sometimes, like, again, the most painful things. So I was a gymnast and we were both dancers and like
I
movement.
was a gymnast too, actually.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God. It's just like, but I really do attribute a lot of what I learned as a young gymnast growing up and like competing, and then I taught, and being part of it is that when you do the same thing over and over and you practice, you do get a different result. And in business, they think if you do the same thing over and over, you know, you're crazy if you're not getting the result that you want. But like in gymnastics, when you do it and you practice it, you get a result that you want. And I knew that, but sometimes priorities take over. And if it's a negative thing or a sad thing, you know, all in one year, my dad got sick, my sister got sick. I don't know, it all started in 2010. Our town flooded. We had 8 displaced weddings.
But your
It
town
was
flooded in 2010?
completely underwater, venues underwater. Again, I thought it was a nightmare. But it was like the community pulled together. We replanned things, we shifted things, moved things. We didn't lose anybody, no one died, and people did die in that flood. You know, so there were good things out of it, but then it made the city and the community stronger.
Yeah.
So when COVID hit 10 years later, a decade later, it's like, okay, I've been through hard things. I've been through fires. I've been through floods. I've been through some really harsh things, which is why I'm paperless, which is why my life lives in the cloud. I don't know why anyone wouldn't want their stuff living in the cloud, but you've got to know how to map it out. And again, all that comes from pain. When a computer crashed or my car was broken into and my planner was stolen. So that's why keeping everything online. So if you really dig into those pain points of like, what are the hardest things? And there's good and bad to everything.
Yep.
And so when COVID hit, my whole team got it. Some people cycled it twice.
Wow.
Even I still was traveling quite a bit, and I was the last person to have it on my team. And I know exactly how I got it from my physical therapist. And I almost died. And so that's, you know, I was down for 18 days. I had 104 fever.
Wow.
I mean, my doctor, I'm friends with a lot of my doctors just from being in healthcare. And they were really worried. Like, I made goodbye videos to my family on my phone. And,
so hard.
you know, it's just like when you're not ready to go. And I kept watching The Greatest Showman over and over. You know, it's just like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But you just have to tell yourself that. And, you know, my doctor was like, you're so unhealthy. You know what you need to do. You were a gymnast. You know what you need to eat. You know you need to move. You know you need. But I was so focused on building another business because all the events were just ripped out from under us, and I had to move the revenue over, that I just let myself go. and I was just eating and sitting and eating and sitting, wasn't going to the gym, everything was closed down, couldn't have a trainer. And so I'm like, I knew I had to move. And so I felt like, okay, I have a second chance, I need to get healthy. And so I looked at the date, you know, and I'm like, I'm gonna lose 100 pounds in 365 days. I know how to do it. I had never done it like that drastic. You know, it's like if you break something and you're a gymnast, you got to shift something because you can't eat whatever you want. You know, it was that kind of mentality. It's like, oh, I'll just get back to it in a few weeks. But there was no a few weeks over COVID. You know, it ended up being almost 2 years. And so everything that we ever knew, I had to I didn't have to do anything, right? I chose to collaborate with brands who offered 3D events where we could go in and build all these things in the metaverse. I mean, it's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
There's a whole other world out there that, again, if you would ask me 3-4 years ago, I'd be like, what are you talking about? That sounds fake, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thankful for all those opportunities I was pushed, but I was still tied to my computer a lot.
Yeah.
And so I knew I had to move. And so getting the treadmill desk, science says, I'm not a numbers guru or numbers girl, but the numbers work and the data works. So that it says move 10,000 steps a day. And so incorporating dance back into my life.
Yeah.
And my 2 little nieces, they were so obsessed with TikTok. I'm like, that's a dance app for kids. And then I studied the business model, and I'm like, oh, this is actually brilliant. 20 creators in a house, creating 20 videos together a day. That's 400 videos a day. If they each have 1 million followers, and there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's 40 million people in a day that you can touch and help and make smile or not. You know, it's like whatever you stand for. So I really got into that. And, you know, I know my nieces were like, you're going to dance with us? I'm like, yeah. And now, I mean, looking back, they were thinking in their heads, well, you're fat or you're unhealthy. Like, you can't move and do that and sweat, which I mean, I was very unhealthy, and I couldn't fit in any of my clothes. But the more that I just kept that one goal, being consistent, just one thing, and that's the thing with goals. We try to do too much.
I like that you
And we
that you
shut
say
down.
that. Yeah. You focus on your one thing. Yeah.
And you've got to, even if you know, if you're married, if you have kids, whatever your responsibilities are, day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, what your responsibilities and your priorities shift in any life, depending on where you are. And but if you don't make yourself a priority, you can't help other people. And while I was in my head thinking I was helping everybody, you know, in the company, I was really just hurting the productivity of the company because there was no balance at all. It was just complete work. And so when I could balance the work with the walking, and y'all, it's not hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't go that fast, but consistent movement throughout the day is the foundation of it. There's no magic pill. There's no magic surgery. The DMs that I get with people asking, and I love it. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. For people who don't know me from, like, you know, a few years ago, they're like, oh my God, you've lost so much weight. And I'm like, but I'm just getting back to my normal self. Like, I can actually fit into my clothes again. But weight has always been something that I've struggled with and I had a very unhealthy relationship with food. Because I would just eat whatever I wanted, which is not good. Food is medicine. It really is. And what you put in your body, you are what you eat. You feel like what you eat.
Yes.
And I mean, again, it's an 80-20 thing. It's like 80% of the time, you know, eat the good, clean life. But nutrition for me was actually the last thing I did. Everything for me in the beginning was just moving. 10,000 steps a day, doing it through dancing or walking. Slowly throughout the day. I would do 8 Zooms back-to-back meetings and have 40,000 steps at the end of the day. And not really be sore.
Yeah, it's more about that active, like, just day to day, getting your steps, walking, trying to, like, walk to work if you can, or take a walk around the block on the hour or something.
And tracking it. Like, and then, you know, so we did it for a year, and I mean, you can go to walkandwork.co. We made its own little website. I never thought that I would. My plan was not to bring this into my business or at all. But when people start to, my whole rule of thumb, especially with affiliate marketing and stuff, is more than 3 people ask you the same thing, and you can help them with their problem. Start as a case study and start building out something where you can help more people.
Yeah.
So if more than 3 people ask, then people are paying attention, which means they're struggling with the same thing you're struggling with.
Yes.
And, you know, it does take a little bit of time, I think, for us to loop around and be comfortable. Because sometimes I'm like, God, I'm such an idiot. But you can't talk to you shouldn't talk to yourself that way.
this. I catch myself doing saying the same thing, like, oh, you shouldn't have said that, Kay. Like, why do you look like an idiot? But it's like, that's an assumption
It
that
is.
I'm making on myself, and was like one of the number one rules.
Yeah.
Don't make assumptions.
No.
Ever.
And like for so many years, I mean, we've had like this 4P, you know, playing off my last name Proffitt. We have 4 Ps, and it's like without the 4 Ps, you cannot have a business that is going round.
Oh yeah.
Without gaps.
Yeah.
And it's people, process, productivity, and profit. And so the productivity piece for us used to be software and automation, which is definitely needed, but it's not sexy and fun. But what I realized through my own journey is that you cannot be productive, and you're not going to promote it and really lead people to want to be more productive if you're not practicing it in yourself.
100%.
And that's where I had to like realize I'm not being the most productive I can be working like this. It's not healthy for anybody. And then, so then we put a framework around it, and we changed a whole pillar in the business of what GSD means. And that productivity now has to do with wellness, and it's not about software, and it's about individually being well, and that means different things to different people. There was a saying going around TikTok that's like, it's hard being thin, it's hard being fit, it's hard being fat, it's hard being overweight, it's hard, choose your hard.
Choose your hard.
Nothing is easy. But when you treat your body the way that it should be treated, then you just feel better overall. And that's all I can say is like the energy level gets so much better. You don't need Red Bulls. I don't drink coffee. There's no addiction to anything other than wanting to be happy and having like the positive feelings.
Oh, I love that. And you made your goal.
Yeah, I did.
I did. Girl, proud of you. That's amazing.
I did. But again, like what helped was just that one thing of 10,000 steps. And then once the world started to open back up, like I did get my trainer back, and I do strength training, but I travel for a living, as you know. So I don't see him every day. We don't do a lot of Zoom stuff. It's just having the discipline of tracking it. And that's what like the Apple Watch does. And it doesn't have to be 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's that 80% of the time.
I love that. That's such a powerful story. I love sharing stories of transformation, like especially a wellness journey, because how many times have I even caught myself over pushing in some ways and then losing in my other, even like overworking out and not giving myself a recovery day. And then my body is just drained in my workouts. But there's been times where I give myself a day of rest, and I'm like killing it the next day. You work twice as hard because you gave yourself that time. So I love that you're finding that harmony in life.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And so I love to ask this question because we're all about helping people elevate their life and well-being. What are 3 ways, they can be big or small, that you elevate yourself that you would want to share with somebody else on how to elevate their life?
Yeah. I am, again, like I'm big on frameworks, because if I don't have like an acronym to something, to a framework, then it doesn't make sense to people. So it's just like my 3 big things, it stands for like GSD, like get shit done. And how you get shit done is you make sure that you're surrounded by the right people. And making sure that the way you communicate with those people and the way they're communicating to you, that you actually understand, like you teach.
Active listening.
Exactly. So, that's one thing, is you could be active listening, but like, are you really understanding? And to ask questions. That's the first thing, is like the people. And the second thing is having a process around anything you do. So for example, like with the weight loss and the wellness journey, we have a TikTok mirror station, y'all, in my bedroom since my little nieces, because we have all these mirrors, that were in my garage from all these weddings we did. And so I literally wrote the word pattern, down on my mirror. And it's like, it seems so stupid, but it's like, I would literally put words like to this pattern to find my own pattern. And the first thing was like positivity. And then how can I make this attainable? You know, like as you're spelling the word, and how can I track my time? Kind of like SMART goals, like that kind of thing. So I went down through and did that. And to me, I put a process around everything I do. But when you take it outside of yourself, like if you own a company or you're a leader or director and you have to come up with something, you have to figure out how to tell someone else how to do that.
Yeah.
And if they don't think the same way you do, how can you dummy proof a process, really? And I'm being funny when I say dummy proof, meaning like make sure you make it a list, make sure you do it in video format, make sure you've got the numbers and the statistics there, and make sure you've got the feelings there. And that way you hit all four personalities, you know, when it comes together for a process.
Yep.
And then my last thing is just, I realized through my own journey, I had somebody in my audience, y'all, sometimes I have mean trolls. I don't view them as mean at all. They're just hurting.
Yes, they're coming from a place of pain. That's how I look at things.
And that's okay. Yeah. Listen, if I'm the girl that caught your attention and you need to like whatever, that's fine. I genuinely mean, as a Southern girl, I will pray for you. But you can't let that stop you. But I had someone say, you are so annoying. Like, you are so happy, and are you always like this? And he's like, I don't love what I do. So, and you know, it kind of hit me. I'm like, oh my God, people don't want to be productive doing shit they don't like to do.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, we got to take a step back and understand that productivity, Tim Ferriss says, like, focus on being productive, not busy.
Yes.
You know, it's like I always had to have my calendar filled being busy. And you said something really important. Like, there's a book I'm listening to right now about being still. Like, stillness is key. And like when you're still and you have to give yourself still time, that's when you can grow. And you start to go through all the clutter and, you know, you find clarity. So my thing is, like, to be the most productive, make sure that you love what you're doing. And, you know, we all have situations and seasons in life, but there has to be a way to bring the happiness in every day. Like, that's where the highs and lows, you know, every night. It's like, okay, what was the high of the day and what was the low? And if there was a low, why? And could I have planned better? You know, all those things. But then I don't go back and second guess myself.
Yeah.
So don't sit around. It's wasted energy to sit around and do that.
Yes.
Like, don't do that.
Being present.
Don't ask people for advice if they've never done what you want to do.
Yeah, that's true.
Again, going back to the right people. So those, you know, those are my things. And then just with, I do have a P with profit, but just making sure that you're using your time wisely. It's not about time is money or time is priceless. It's really precious. So how can you get the most out of the time that you're here and the legacy that you leave? Like, what do you want people to stand up and say about you when you're gone?
Yeah.
Write that.
Yeah.
Set yourself a 5-minute timer and write that. And that will bring you clarity, because if what people say and then what you're doing now and how you're spending your time, if it doesn't align, how can you get realigned? There's a bigger purpose to things.
Oh, that is so true. I absolutely love that. You know, just those philosophies on life are things we all can grow from, and we can all be practicing more and more of every day. So this has been such a great conversation.
Yeah, now we're going to dance.
Now we're going to dance. And so I'd love to share before we dance.
Yes.
How can the audience find you?
Yes, you can go to my website, angelaproffitt.com, and it's 2 F's as in fun and 2 T's as in time. Right? So yeah, everything is on our website. All what we do and how we GSD and how we get shit done and doing the shit that we love to do, working with people we love to work with.
100%. Well, thank you so much for being on Elevated You.
Thank you for having me. Stay elevated.
Stay elevated.